Welcome everyone, I am Keeoh, a Radiant Killjoy main, and I'm going to teach you all of the best GEKKO mosh pit lineups on every single map in Valorant. The reason that I'm going to teach you guys these is because GEKKO's molly is the same weight as Killjoy's molly. So I have tons of lineups ready to share with you guys. So if you're new to the channel here, please consider subscribing. And if you want to come watch any of our content live on Twitch, go to twitch.tv/Keeoh. I'd love to see you here. Without further ado, let's jump into the first map, Ascent. This video is time-stamped. You can jump to whatever map. So if you're in a comp game right now, go ahead and click and find some lineups that you can use in your game right now. Go, do it, yay. So with every guide that I do, I generally try to give you guys the most practical and useful lineups. So this might not be the most extensive guide. There's definitely more lineups you could learn. These are gonna be the lineups that you will be able to use very quickly in a situation. I'm gonna put you in positions that are gonna help you set up for a win. First one is Ascent A main for default. I like to look at this little bike. You just push yourself up against it. It's a pretty generous lineup. You can go anywhere on the bike here, but I like to go in the middle. And then I look up at this little part of the antenna. Easy lineup. This one lands right to gen default, which is the most common spot to plant. And with Mosh's mosh pit, it's amazing. So big. Next one, we're going to throw one onto dice. You just look into this corner very easily. And then up at this spike. Super easy. It's the most prominent one out to the right, and it lines up right with dice. Next lineup is if you're retaking with a Killjoy ult. You have a Killjoy on your team. This is a very niche lineup, but it's one of the best. Door is closed. Tell your team, hey, we're going to play Killjoy ult to retake. Don't break the door. You have your Killjoy, place the ult right there. Push yourself in this corner. Pretty much every lineup I'm going to do, I'm going to be pushing myself into a corner. So if you're ever like, where did he stand? It's in a corner. Then you look at this little box, throw it in the center. And this is one of the best mollies to clear out wine because look at how much space this takes. They either die, get detained by the Killjoy ult if it's right here, or die to the mosh pit. Actually beautiful. Let's move on to B. There aren't too many lineups that we need to show you here just because it's not really worth it to play for lineups too often in this situation. Since you only have one molly, you don't want to be standing all the way out here playing for lineups because then by the time you come back in, they're going to full defuse the bomb. The only lineup I really want to teach you guys for B is going to be right here. You're going to stand pretty much not in the corner, sadly. You can't get it. But you're going to walk just a little bit away from the corner until you can kind of see the bush in the bottom left corner. And you're going to look to the right of the bush and then up to here in this little like white fracture section. And what this is going to do is just bounce off the back wall and it'll land to default. Again, Mosh's pit is huge. This will get him off bomb or kill them. It's pretty great. That's about it for B. I tried to come up with a lineup here for stairs, but basically I found it better to just throw a molly here because it's massive and you want to be holding the angle if they swing out on either side. Let's go ahead and move on to the next map. Alrighty, buckle in everybody. We are on one of the best maps for lineups. Here we go. We're starting on A long. You're going to crouch, push yourself into the sandbag corner. You're going to crouch, look at the tip of this, look a little bit under it, and this lineup lands very, very well for defaults. All right, we got one more molly from the exact same spot. You're going to push yourself into the sandbag corner. Look at the tip of the hut. And this one's going to land for ammo boxes. Beautiful lineup for A. This one is a little bit of a weird lineup, but it's because it's a jump throw. There just isn't really a good spot to throw a molly of this size closer, but this is the best way to play it. You're lining up these circles till you see a half point on it because there's big circles up there. Till you see about half the circle, then you look at right in the dead center of them and look at the roof right here. It's kind of a weird lineup, but once you get used to it, it's really easy to line it up in game because it's pretty forgiving. So once you're looking at a half circle, line up there, you're going to do a jump throw, and this is going to land for default B. The good thing about this lineup is after you throw it, you can come to mid window and then they tap again and you can swing. Obviously, they know you're probably going to swing from there, but it is still a really good way to stall for time for the team. We're going to move on to C side here. I have two lineups for you. One's long. You could do this from this side, but the problem is it's just a little inconsistent because sometimes it hits the branches here. So what I like to do, I've just been recently completely moving to this side because there's no branches in the way. But I'm looking at this part of the volcano here, this little tip, and you're moving it over slightly to the right because people like to plant over here more. So just depending upon where the bomb's planted, you're just lining up with that horizontally, move it over to the right, and then boom. Normal throw, nothing crazy, and that lands very well for default. Next up, we're going to come to Cubby here. This is a little bit of an odd one, but it's very good for Mosh. You're going to look in between the first two bottom little lips of wood here they are, and you're going to line up your left diamond with it. This one lands back sights, clears everything. It's really good for either post-plant situations, or if you know somebody's playing back here, you could then potentially throw that molly, and then right as the molly's about to land, throw a dizzy up, and they should get flashed. It'll be beautiful. Let's go ahead and move on to defense here. I have a couple retake mollies that I want to teach you here. First up, it's going to be on C site. We're going to come into this corner, push yourself up behind you. You're going to look at this, and you're going to look at the left diamond, just at the pole, but a little bit up from the bottom, because it will land pretty well for default here. The reason you don't look at the bottom of the pole is it won't cover that spot. So looking up a little bit more covers every default plant spot right there. Moving on over to a retake, actually, even though we're in spawn here. This is one of my favorite lineups in the game because a lot of people don't expect it. And you run into this back corner. You're going to look at the tip of here. Little inconsistency you're going to have here because you're going to need to run, jump, and throw at the same time. But when you do, this lands really well for default planting on A site. Again, mosh pit is really big. So even if they're not planting default, a lot of players play in this area. It could help your team retake together. Very good. That's really good if you're playing C or garage and rotating from CT. But if you rotated from B, you could also throw this lineup where you're going to line the HUD up with this one here. And what you do here, this will land default as well. So consider comboing that with some fade seizes or some other utility surrounding it, and should net you some free kills. There we go. Let's move on to the next map. We are here on Split A main. I'm going to show you some mollies for post plant here. You're going to push yourself into this corner, and then you're going to look at the top of this metal. This is really good. You're going to look a little bit to the left because if you throw it right here, it just hits the top of it. So look to the little bit to the left of it. You're going to throw it and watch as this one lands to cover heaven plant, deep default, and normal default. There's so many use cases for that. I like to do that one when they're planted for heaven, and then you can come in here and swing. Beautiful. Instead of going into this corner, you're going to jump up a little bit, and then you're going to look at the bottom of the leaf here. Throw that one. It's going to land for the back site plants. Right there. Those are A site plants. On B side, it's not really worth it to have a lineup from out here because it's going to take so long for that molly to land that they could probably defuse. And then you also have to run all the way through garage and then peek. And if it's not planted for main, it's planted for default, you just lose the round. You're going to be tucked in this corner. You're going to slowly crouch and back up because if you are standing here, they'll see your head. So you need to crouch and then you're going to back up until you barely see the sun. Okay, like a gamer, you barely want to see the sun. Remember that for this lineup and it'll help you win rounds. Then you just throw it right there and it's gonna bounce off the back wall and cover both default and the long plant. Now for retake here, you're gonna go over here. You're gonna look at the end of the green thing here. I don't even know what this is. Roof shingles. You're gonna look here and then you're gonna line that up with your right diamond. Do a normal throw and you're gonna push yourself in that corner when you do it. Very easy to line up. This one's gonna land for default and it kind of just stalls them when they're pushing in. So if you think they're about to plant, I'd throw this one about like 4 or 5 seconds before they're about to plant, just to kind of cause more chaos when they're pushing in on the round. If you're playing post plant or if you're trying to stall and you have heaven control, you can come up here, push yourself against this corner, and then you're gonna look at this, but then just look over till you're not gonna bounce it off this wall, basically. So you're looking at the top of this, throw it here, and then this is gonna cover both default plant spots. So this is a really good one to stall for plant or for post plant. It's a very good multi-use lineup. I think that's all I have to show you on Split. It was quick and easy, and that's the way we like it. Here we go to the next map. There aren't too many lineups that you can do that are really effective. I've tried my best to show you guys exclusively the ones that I would use in game, and this is what I've come up with. On A, there's a really good molly that you can throw. If it lands up here, it covers actually every single area possible. It covers up top, covers default, covers rope. Amazing. I try to make these the most usable mollies as possible. So I like to just stand here. You're looking at the top thing, the blue thing, and then you're just going to jump, peek, and throw at the same time. Nothing too crazy, but it'll cover everything. For defense, same spot. It's not going to land on top, though. You're just going to push yourself into this corner, and then you're going to look at this light. Easy throw is going to bounce off, and then this is going to land. It's going to be really good for really stopping people from pushing in. We only have one molly lineup for defense and one molly lineup for attack on both sides. For B, I like to push myself into this corner, into the rafters, and then we're going to look up at the top of this. Super easy. Nothing crazy hard about that one. And then that lands for default. So you'll have to do it pretty prematurely before they're planting. You can't really do that one off plant. And then this one is really good for post plant. And you can throw this one off tap because it lands very quickly. You're going to push up into this corner and then jump up. You can walk forward a little bit. Doesn't really matter. But you want to be careful that you don't peek too far. You don't jump up all the way. You're just right here. And then you're going to line up with the hills over here. You see those little indentations? I'm on low graphics, so you can see this on whatever graphic settings you play. But you can look up at any of these corners, and it'll bounce off of yellow here. What? You're going to look up here, and you're going to look at the inside one because it only works off of this one. And it just bounces off of the top of yellow and lands on default. Sorry about that. Moving on to the next map. That's all we have for ICEBOX. Here are the lineups we're going to be showing you today. For post plant on A, you're going to stand in this corner, and then you're going to look at this little lip right here on the edge of it. And this is going to land in default, kind of on the right side. Covers a lot of ground. It's a good plant. Right next, we have another post plant. It's just on the other side here, if you like this one better. You look at the top of this, putting yourself in the corner on the other side of the corner here. Then you're just looking at the top of the little pillar here. This is probably a little easier to remember, but it lands a little differently. So just depends how you like to play your post plant. Next one is for either post plant, or if you're trying to stall for time, potentially killing a planter that is already planting, but you have to throw it a little bit preemptively. You're going to ping right here, and then you're going to line your right diamond up with it. And again, you're just pushing yourself into that corner there. So that is going to land default, cover everything. Very nice lineup. And for B, on defense, we don't really have any lineups because there isn't really a reason to have one, because you'd have to throw them up, and then it would take too long. They would already plant by the time your molly lands. So you could either throw them in this corner, like around these boxes, and it'll reach all the way around to default, which is pretty fun. So you could get it deep in that corner, covers a lot of ground. And you can do the same thing on this side. If you throw it deep on this corner, it'll just cover all the way around. However you want to go about it is the best way to play around it. You know, get comfortable, figure out where you can throw it from. Like, you could chuck this one from heaven. That's pretty nice, and it'll cover if they're trying to tuck to plant. Or even then, you could do a little jump peek and throw it even further out, but that's a little risky. Do it at your own speed. You can figure it out. I believe in you. Now, for post plant on A site, we like to throw this one. You stand in this corner very easily. Shout out Dad Fat Live for this one. Just look at the light. That's it. Very easy. And guess what? We're going right back to that same spot for this plant, because you're going to look exactly at the light. You're going to do a jump throw. And guess what? It lands for long as well. Super easy to remember lineup. Really great. And then this one I like a lot, looking at the light, because then it lands more to the right side, which you would think, oh, but the planter's on the left side. That's not very good. But guess what? When they have to run away from the molly, you can just peek them. You can come out of the corner and peek them when they're running away from the molly. It's beautiful. That's it for Pearl. Let's move on to the next map. I'm going to show you some post-plant molly lineups for B site to start us off. All right, you're going to push yourself into this corner on arcade, and then you're going to be looking at this pole and left diamond on that little part of the pole. And basically, this lands over to default. You could swing it from heaven after. You could come around arcade. Really, really good lineup to play with the games. You push yourself into this corner. Kind of weird, but you can get it going. And then you're going to look right here with also the left diamond. You just line it up with the bottom of the little castle thingy right there. And then this is going to land for dice. And again, really good for post plant because, you know, if it's planted for here, you probably want to play main, and that gives you, you know, more time to peek and play time. Now let's go on over to A site. Again, all the lineups that we make are meant to be very useful, so I'm trying to not make lineups like, I was just talking to Chad about this, but basically, you know, we don't need to make a lineup from drop that lands for default, because, you know, even after the molly, then you have to jump down from drop and try to kill them, and that's puts them kind of in a better position. So all the lineups that I'm showing you are going to be really useful for post plant situations. All right, we have one that lands just for here on that little corner plant spot. Just for a safe little toss, you'll push yourself into this corner, and then you're going to look at this bar. We're going to bounce it off it. So we're going to look above it at this little panel. It's just going to bounce off. Again, just going to be good stall for time and cause some chaos there. And it's just a safe way to do it, because then you don't even have to peek. You hear that first tap, throw it, and then you could wait. You could walk up a little bit, make sure nobody's send, and then wait for that second tap and swing with the team together. Next up, we have over here in sand for the post plant on A side again. First one up, you're going to just look at the middle of the building here, and this one is very nice. It bounces off the wall and then covers all of default, and then they have to push out of sight. This might be one of my favorite GEKKO lineups so far. I've yet to try it out in game, but man, this is going to be really fun, because after, you could open the door yourself and go and peek from main and catch them off guard here. Or what I think is going to be really fun, you could throw this lineup, send wingman out to open door for you and make some sound, and then based on where the molly lands, they're most likely going to run this way on sight. You could just be holding for them already. Last one up, and we could do the same thing with this ability, or this lineup as well. is you're going to line the left diamond up with this part. Same corner that we're looking in. Again, it's the closest corner to the rope. You're lining the left diamond up on this part of it. You could send wingman through door. You could go door yourself. Either way, you could play a lot of mind games with this, and then they're going to have to run out of this situation. So you could be all the way back here, you know, peeking them as they run to back sight. You could have wingman open door. You could open door. There's so many mind games you could play with this, and it's going to be really fun because, you know, you could do this, wait for it to land, and then you could literally just wait for them to tap again. Or if they're running away, catch them here. Or wait for them to tap again, swing. It's awesome. That is it for Fracture. Let's move on to Lotus. Let me just preface this map with, this is one of the worst maps to play for lineups across the board. It is very difficult. So I'm going to give you all the lineups that I would actually use in game. Remember, so take this with a grain of salt. There are more lineups out there, but they're going to be way harder. This is the ones that I would actually use in my competitive games. Here we go. For starters, you're going to stand over here. Unfortunately, it's not a corner, so you're just going to have to line up with this corner. But then you just look at the little funny looking leaf right here. Throw it at the top of that. And then this should land for both default plants on the left and right. Very, very nice lineup. And that's probably the best one for Lotus. Little post plant or for potentially stalling a plant. There isn't really a lineup for this, but you can just bank your molly off the wall over there. So you don't really have to be overexposed for it. And again, that'll cover both sides and could potentially stall a lot of time for you. And then when it pops, they're probably going to be swinging out of here. Really good way to play around that. So you could do that for post plant, or you could do it for, you know, stopping them from planting. We got a jump throw lineup. I hate jump throw lineups because they are inconsistent. But if you want to try a jump throw on B, you're going to look up here with the left diamond on the corner there, and then you're going to go ahead and do a jump throw. And you're going it just on the first step here. And if this one works, it goes straight through the hole and lands for this plant on B site. Pretty amazing that it works. Man, lineups that go over a building through a hole, this is just ridiculous. Another good, much easier lineup for B is you're going to stand in waterfall here. You're going to line up the left diamond. Or actually, is it the right diamond? Right diamond. With that, and then that's going to land for default. Beautiful. We don't really have much for C. And that's very sad. And I feel a bit defeated as someone who's played hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of Killjoy and Viper. It is so hard to get a consistent molly here. You could run throw, you could jump throw, and you could potentially get it through these holes. I'm not going to show you these lineups because I don't want you to throw your comp games trying to go for those. So this is the way that I would play post plant in this situation. So I would plant the bomb here. This is probably the best post plant spot, especially with wingman, because he can just plant for you. So the way that I like to play it is hold gun out pretty much for the most part, and then holding back sight here if anyone peeks. You hear tap. You could even hold back. If you hear them tap, clear here first with your gun out, and then just bank the molly off and then go back to your corner. Wait for the next tap. Sound good? And then if you want to mix it up, if they're expecting you on this side, you could do it from this angle first, and instead do a little jump throw and bounce the molly off the corner, and it gets a lot of sight cover. That is about all we have for Lotus. It's not a ton, so if people do end up finding more lineups that are better where you're standing in a corner and you're not jump throwing, let me know. Leave me a comment. Show me I'm wrong, please. That's it for Lotus. Let's go ahead and hop onto Bind. I know this map isn't in rotation right now, but we're going to teach them anyway until, just in case it comes back into rotation. You're going to stand in this corner right here. Look at this little leaf right here. That's it. Just the little in between the leaves. This one lands right on here. You know, we're all good. Perfect. We're going to go over to B and throw another post plant molly. You're going to stand here on this rock. Pretty easy. And then you look at the bottom of that little can. All you need to do, and that lands for default as well. There is a pre-plant molly that I would throw. If they say, hey, they're pushing A, this molly takes quite a while for that to travel in. You're going to be lining your HUD up with this. And then you're going to kind of go in just a touch. And then you do a running jump throw into this corner. And this one is freaking crazy because it goes so far, but it lands to default, and it's amazing. So, love that lineup. And then if you're closer, I'm sure many of you guys know this, but you can just bank your molly off this wall, and then it'll land default and stall that plant, especially if they have a sage wall up or something like that getting in your way at all. That will do it for Bind. That's all the lineups I have to show you right now. Let's go to the final map, and then I'm gonna go to bed. Honestly, every lineup on this map sucks for GEKKO. The ceilings are too high. This map sucks. I'm gonna go to bed. I've been doing lineups for 5 hours, and I just don't think it's worth it to play for lineups as GEKKO and Breeze. So goodbye. Please subscribe. Please.